keep getting suckered into this every time. Okay. I have nothing else to do. It's a long weekend. Vancouverrx. Buddy old pal. Choke issues. Okay. Your car dies as soon as you put it into gear. Alright. Let's have a look-see. Alright. Engine's cold. Choke is on. Alright, I'm going to go fire this puppy up now. Alright, if you have an issue like this where you constantly have to keep your foot on the accelerator, well, your choke could be set too lean. Your choke might not be working at all. First thing you want to do, pop off your air cleaner. Linkage was binding there. Alright. Choke is on. Go back over to the car. I think I'm going to turn that down a bit. I don't like revving out at 4,500 RPM. Feels like deja vu all over again. I'd say that's a little more realistic. Now, Vancouverrx, your engine stalls with your choke on once you put it into gear. Maybe your choke idle ain't high enough. Check that out as well. Or your choke might be running too lean. Take a look here for a second here. Can't hear anything over this heavy duty fan clutch I got in it. So if your engine dies, you might notice that your choke here might be set too lean, so you might have to loosen these screws off and adjust it either to the left or the right and see if that helps it any. Or maybe your choke idle ain't high enough. Maybe your idle is also needs to be adjusted as well. Or it might not even be a carburetor issue at hand. As soon as I hear, seeing that you mentioned about engine vibrations, that made me think for a minute. You might not even have a carb issue. You might be running on only 5 or 6 cylinders. Your timing might be incorrect. You might have a vacuum hose leak. Your distributor components might be done. Your spark plug gaps might be out of adjustment. There's a whole series of things. But here's a few to get you started with anyway, so maybe you can get your car running a little better. You might need a good tune-up, or it might need a good run. I don't know. I'm not there to physically look at your vehicle, so it's hard for me to pinpoint, but I can give you a few pointers, and hopefully this will help you out on your way. Here's your EGR valve. You might want to make sure that the vacuum connections to it are good. Make sure that the EGR valve is good. All the vacuum hoses. Okay, choke pull off. I got to put the bolts back in that. Okay, sitting in the car. Choke is on. I'm going to apply the brake and I'm going to put it into gear. She doesn't seem to want to run on its own power very well. It is right now, but it's hesitating. And with no load on the engine whatsoever, once I put it into park, it runs fine. Try this again. It's hesitating, it's bucking, but it is running. This could just be a very simple case of a bad choke adjustments on the carburetor. The engine could be the choke could be set a little too rich, and it might just need a few little minor tweaks. So engine idles erratically. Okay, well, engine stalls once put into on load, so once put into gear, once the transmission is put into gear, well, okay. Let's deal with the engine idles erratically. The engine is actually idling erratically in this car right now. Improperly gapped spark plugs, timing chain, camshaft lobes. If the camshaft lobes are worn, yeah, you're going to have issues. Spark plug gaps, spark plug wires, distributor components, your coil. Leaking spark plug wires, definitely a big one. It might not even be a carburetor issue. It might be firing. But let's talk carburetor. Fuel filter. Fuel pump not delivering sufficient fuel to the carburetor. But you already took care of that issue, and I believe you mentioned that you replaced the fuel pump. Carburetor out of adjustment. Yes, it will. If the carburetor needs adjustment, yes. But if you adjust your carburetor, you adjust your choke, and you're still having issues with it, it might not be anything to do with the carburetor. So take a look somewhere else. Vacuum hoses, bad EGR valve, bad PCV valve. It could be any of those. Vacuum hoses. You have a few bad vacuum hoses. Faulty emission systems. Okay, there are some vacuum operated nonsense under the hood of these things, even that aren't computer controlled. Plug catalytic converter. You know, imagine you have one. But I would, if I were you, personally, to take a look at the ignition. Take a look at your spark plugs, your plug gaps. Maybe change the spark plugs entirely if you haven't done it in a while, and check your wires. My engine is idling so rough right now that the whole car is shaking. I'm sitting here, it just doesn't feel all that right. Once I rev it up, it's not so bad. It levels itself out. Ignition timing could be an issue too. Once it returns to idle, back to the same routine again. A little bit of help for you on where to start to look while dealing with your engine. If your engine is idling erratically and your engine stalls and your engine is not so bad once it is warm. If the engine stalls while it's cold, it might just be a choke malfunction. It might. I'm not saying it is. I'm not there to physically look at your car, so it's kind of very hard and difficult for me to diagnose your problem. My issue with why my engine is idling erratically, and why the whole car shakes all the time, and the exhaust is also affected by it too. Once the engine shakes, of course, you're going to have rattles and all this. And the reason for this, why my engine is doing this, I pulled the number 5 spark plug wire. It was only running on 7 cylinders. Don't believe me? This wire for the number 5 spark plug cylinder it was unplugged the whole time. So if I were you, take a look at your spark plug wires, your spark plug gaps. Check that first. Then if there's no difference in the way it idles, then take a look at the carburetor. If your choke isn't working, well then take a look at your choke, but don't do anything else with the carburetor. Take a look at the ignition first.